On today's season preview, part 5.
LeBron James, Steph Curry, or maybe a wild card, we debate who is the league's best player.
What are some minor moves that could shake things up? What punny NY Post headline can we see on the printing presses already?
And Tass is back on the hot seat with advice for Draymond Green and the Greek Freak.
The starter 72 burning questions starts now.
Good evening, sweet world, and welcome to part 5 of the Starters NBA season preview. Whether you're listening to the podcast, watching us on YouTube, catching us on NBA TV Live, happy to have you. I'm Jay Skeets. Alongside me, as always, that's Tass Mellis.
Let's NBA.
To his right, it's the international man of mystery, taking it to the max, Lee Ellis.
Friend.
Lele.
And last, certainly not least, it's the bearded one, Trey Kirby.
Hey!
Oh! All right, guys, our 72 burning questions NBA season preview, it does continue. If you missed any of the first 4 shows, they're up on YouTube as well as our Facebook page, so go check those out. As we've been doing with all these questions, we want you to play along at home on Twitter, hashtag the starters with your answers. And I think question 33 will get a bit of a response because it's a fun one. I know Dave Grisham in Dubai is going to have an opinion about this one.
First Dave Grisham shout out for the year.
My buddy Grish, good call. All right, who is the best player in the league?
It's juicy.
It's juicy, buddy.
Juicy.
I think it'd be ridiculous not to take the guy who just won an NBA Finals MVP, taking a team for the first time from 3-1 and winning that series. This game is still about winning. It's LeBron James. How can it not be? His numbers were 30, 11, and 9, and then in the last 3 games, he took it up even further with the blocks and the steals. I know people want to give this to Steph Curry, which is reasonable. It's not a crazy thing, but this guy, not only can he impact the game offensively like Steph, but he can impact it defensively like that. He saved a series, the finals, the championship with that monstrous block on Andre Iguodala. That's why he wins over Steph to me, because he can dominate on both ends.
Yeah,
he wins the hypothetical title.
Yeah, and like you're saying, Tass, those last 3 games are basically the only evidence we can really go on because LeBron was crazy in those last 3 games. 36 points, 11 rebounds per game, 10 assists per game, 50% from the field, 42% from 3. This is like unheard of stuff, and I think that if there was a giant pickup game and every NBA player was available, everybody, even in the NBA, is still picking LeBron number 1 because he does it on both ends. If it's a 1-game series, you want LeBron because if he's on your team, you have the best chance of winning.
I'm going to say Steph Curry, though.
Wow.
Because I'm going to throw out those last 3 games, as incredible as they were.
Oh, just the 3 most pressure-packed games of the season?
That's right, that's right.
Makes
But
sense.
the reason I'm saying that is because Steph was unanimously voted MVP by the media and the MVP voting criteria, and also by his players, by his peers. They said he was the best player. I don't know if that was unanimous or not, but he was voted MVP last year. He's still, in my opinion, the most destructive offensive player in the league. He's the only player in the NBA who you have to guard basically as soon as he gets across half court. He has unlimited range. He led the league in scoring last year and was the first person to do that by shooting 50, 40, and 90. He smashed his own 3-point record by shooting 400 threes last season, which was unbelievable. Nobody thought he could get anywhere near that. Defensively as well, he led the league in steals, remember, last year. So he doesn't get the shot blocks that LeBron does, but he's a lot smaller. He doesn't get that same height, but he still impacts the team on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And the Warriors,
Not quite the same.
Warriors' offensive efficiency was 22 points off per 100 possessions better when he was on the floor.
Sure.
LeBron's about 16. Now, I mean, they play different positions, different minutes, and they do different sorts of things. But for me, when Steph Curry has the ball and he gets over half court, he is a threat to score the ball.
But they're 2 different things. You can be the most fearsome offensive player, which I agree. I think that is still Curry, a healthy Curry at least. But that doesn't mean overall you're the best basketball player.
Yeah.
And I'm not even just talking about defense, which of course is coming into play here and why LeBron's probably above Curry to a lot of people. And even Kawhi Leonard's going to be in the mix because he does it on both ends. But the intangibles as well. As a leader, tough to argue with the success that LeBron James has had, going to 6 straight finals, not winning them all, of course, but even getting there is, as Steve Kerr has said, that's maybe one of the greatest accomplishments we've ever seen in NBA history.
There's no doubt.
Just getting there.
There's no doubt about that. But remember, Steph led his team to the best regular season we've ever seen last year.
I know.
He was easily the best player.
And that's why isn't this
team.
funny question? Because I know it's tough to say, but it's a crazy what if, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if Draymond Green doesn't get suspended for Game 5? And let's say the Warriors, they take it in 5. So now they're back-to-back champs. LeBron has another loss on his resume in the finals. That upsets people for whatever reason. You know, then we would be maybe sitting here going, well, how do you not give it to Curry? He's unanimous MVP, and he would have just won back-to-back titles, right?
Yeah, the funny thing about LeBron's finals appearances is he almost gets penalized for making the finals and losing, because Jordan was 6 for 6
Yeah,
in his
yeah.
finals appearances. LeBron obviously has the black mark of losing finals, but it doesn't make any sense. The fact that he's gotten there is a huge accomplishment, and he's learned to manage his body perfectly. You said it. In a 1-game scenario, 3-game scenario, you're probably taking LeBron James because he's managed his body perfectly the last few years. But when it comes down to a couple of games in the playoffs, he looks like a different player than his regular season performance.
Yeah,
He's
he just
different.
doesn't really care about the regular season at all. And as we've seen with Curry last year, he definitely cared about the regular season, and that's why it's such impossible to actually figure out how you're going to guard him. Like you're saying, Lee, when you're playing 3 games a week for 6 straight months, you're not used to a guy who pulls up from half court.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an easy way for him to get shots because he can hit them, and he's the only guy who really can. But in a do-or-die situation, you got to take LeBron.
And that's why Steve Kerr has changed his attitude about this coming season. They're not going to go crazy and play Steph 82 games.
Yeah.
They're just not. They're going to scale it back because they sort of lost their way. And not to give Steph an excuse in the NBA Finals, but he definitely wasn't 100% for games 5, 6, and 7. Draymond out has a huge. I was there for game 5. I thought it was over. I thought if Draymond Green's in that lineup, I think they win. And then we're not talking about this the same way.
Something you brought up, you said, like, if this was a hypothetical, playground game and all the coaches or owners, whoever got to pick the first guy, would they pick LeBron? And I agree with you, they probably would. But switch it around. If this was, which guy do you want currently in the NBA to start a franchise with? So taking into consideration
He's
how
31
many minutes
years
you played,
old.
age, and exactly, do you still pick LeBron? Like, we like the entire rosters start over here. Lee, you've got the first pick. Do you take LeBron despite being older than Steph Curry or Durant or Kawhi or Westbrook, whoever you want to go?
Yeah, I would probably still take LeBron. You're going to the finals that year. Maybe you win
That's
a
what I
title in the
think, too.
first year, and then after you get that first title, you can just keep piling them up, right? Everybody says, hey, I want to go play with LeBron.
I mean, the thing is, all those players you mentioned have got something they can bring to the table. Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, they all bring something different. And on their given night, I mean, we saw Westbrook in that series against the Warriors. He was basically unstoppable there for a while, and then they blew a 3-1 lead as well.
Sure.
So he, on his night, is the best player. Kevin Durant as well, we know. I mean, he's an MVP of this league and has always in that conversation as the best player. But he didn't do it last season because the Warriors came back and they upset them. Imagine that. Imagine the Thunder, talking about what
Yeah,
you
I
said
know.
before. If the Thunder beat the Warriors in 5 games last season,
Then
Kevin
maybe,
Durant-
then
Kevin Durant's
maybe you're
maybe
saying
the
Kevin
best
Durant.
player.
No,
Basketball is awesome, man. Basketball is great.
A bonus question here. I know we've been doing a little fun with some of these bonus questions, and it was something Dwayne Wade was asked about this offseason about LeBron chasing Michael Jordan, his legacy. And Wade says that he cannot surpass Michael Jordan's legacy. He can maybe tie him at best. I love that cop out there from Wade, by the way. But you can maybe tie him, but he's not going to pass him. What do you think? Is it impossible? Impossible because, as you said, Tass, Jordan goes 6 for 6 in the finals in terms of winning it. Can you pass that, or no way for LeBron?
The way we scrutinize things, I think you can't. I mean, maybe 30 years down the road, when we look back at both their careers and LeBron was whatever he was, 5 for 9 in the finals, who knows
Yeah.
what he'll be in the finals. Maybe we can appreciate it, but the way we scrutinize things, we just talk about Michael Jordan in a different way. You know, we just revere
that's
him
exactly
in
right.
a different way. He is a god to us who watch basketball games.
Yeah.
He's not human. We can't touch him. And LeBron still is, he's not quite demigod. He's just not.
he's on Twitter, he's on Instagram.
Yeah, he's real.
He's one of us.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
you're right.
It's
He's not.
faults.
It's
Yeah.
not. LeBron is not just sort of competing with all the rings, which come into play, and the numbers, which come into play, and success. But it's the idea.
Yeah.
It really is the idea of Michael Jordan, which, because of the time when he came in the league and sort of saving the league with other guys. I mean, how do you can't beat that.
But going
You
6 for
can't.
6 in the finals makes it virtually impossible to beat him because let's say LeBron wins another 3 and he wins 6, but people say, yeah, but you lost 3 or 4 along the way. People won't sort of say, well, you're in more. They'll say, Michael went 8 years, took 2 of those years off basically, and won 6 championships.
Yeah.
If you're having a barbershop conversation, the first argument that comes out of a guy's mouth who's defending Jordan is, he was 6 for 6.
6 for 6.
Yeah.
LeBron lost.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
But,
he got there 6
but
times and he won.
To
And-
play devil's advocate, you could look at who, and not that Jordan played crappy teams in the finals, but if LeBron,
not
let's
the best of
say
teams.
LeBron takes down with the Cavs, takes down the Warriors again. Who added Durant this offseason? He goes back to back against a team that won 73 wins and then added Durant. Don't they mean a little bit more? They might to some people.
To
Yeah,
some
to
people,
some,
for
yeah.
sure. But I mean, these guys will probably go down in history as the 2 best ever.
Yeah.
They're the best ever in their respective eras, and
Yeah.
they're kind of impossible to compare, really.
So that question was
Consider-
pointless. What was the point of
They're
that?
the greatest, man.
Oh, we should have been in a bar. I could have got my hair cut.
Pre-social media,
for
it's
this
Jordan.
conversation.
Post-social media, it's LeBron.
All right, let's hear from you guys. Let's hear from you guys on Twitter. Lots more still to come. Under the radar off-season moves and predicting the Knicks' immediate future. Come on back. Back with the starters. The 72 burning questions continue. Having a lot of fun with this. Question 34, guys, for all of you here and everyone watching. What was the best under the radar off-season move?
Let's go under the radar. Ish Smith of the Detroit Pistons, their backup point guard.
And that's under the radar.
Very under the radar.
It's a thin market for backup point guards out there, and Stan Van Gundy hated playing his bench last year. His starters played the most minutes of any team. His team didn't play all that well. Ish Smith, he's bounced around the league. He hasn't been able to stick anywhere. 6 teams, 10 stints. But I think this move could save the Pistons season. Reggie Jackson is out. Ish
like
Smith.
playoff chances type
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. Reggie Jackson is out likely the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. Ish Smith steps in. He's a borderline starter, I believe, in this league. He's entered his peak. I think he's learned what he is in this league. And now he can run this offense and then go back to that backup role once Reggie Jackson is back. Not a fantastic player. We're going under the radar here. I think he can hold a team together, and Stan Van Gundy's going to be happy to go to his bench and go to Ish. And I think you can play Ish and Reggie together when you go small because you got that monstrous front line and Andre Drummond
time.
playing a lot of big guys with him. They're going to go big up front, small in the backcourt.
Super cheap contract as well.
Yeah, free
not
for
breaking
18. I like watching Ish Smith play.
it. All right, Trey, who you got?
I love Pau Gasol signing with the Spurs because I feel like he's the kind of player who is always destined to be a Spur. He's an international player. He's a funny guy. He clearly loves team basketball. And I think it was just a really good scramble for the Spurs after Tim Duncan retired. I think that Pau can also help replace a little bit of what Boris Diaw gave him. He's a better offensive player than Duncan was by the time he retired. Really good passer. He'll work nice with LaMarcus Aldridge. The worry is going to be on the defensive end because I think that Pop will put Pau into good places. He'll probably block a lot of shots just by being tall and being at the rim, but he doesn't really box out. LaMarcus Aldridge, not a big-time boxer outer either. So there's going to be a lot of offensive rebound opportunities, I think, against the Spurs, but all things considered, if you're able to add Pau Gasol for the same kind of money that Kent Bazemore is getting, that's an okay job for a starting center.
Yeah, I think like what you said, he was always destined to become a
Oh,
Spur.
yeah.
I mean,
It sounded like you think the Spurs should sign Box Out Kid to a short term.
Well, somebody's got to sign box out.
That's a throwback. That's a throwback
He's
to the
gotta be
old
18 by
fans.
now.
That's
All
a
right.
memer.
Yeah, Lee, what do you got? Who you go?
I'm
Under the
going
radar.
with Al Jefferson for the Indiana Pacers, 3 years and $30 million. He's going to be coming off the bench.
You
as
like this?
Yeah, I do, because he's a backup center to Miles Turner. Now, this works really well because the Pacers want to play quicker. So they get that first unit out there, they start playing. Miles Turner can learn a little bit from Al Jefferson just about the game. And then, look, Al Jefferson, we know, is not the quickest player in the league. But when he comes off the bench, they can throw the ball into him in the low post. He can post guys up and score. You don't have to play fast the entire game. If you've got a guy and his strength is to play the way that Al Jefferson does, and if you're Nate McMillan, then play to that. Play to that strength. Just get a few baskets out of him. You're not looking for him to go out there and run if he's not that type of player, but he can still be effective. He has had injury troubles in the past, but if he's healthy, he's on the floor and he's giving a good 15 to 20 to 25 minutes a night, that will help the Pacers bench. They were terrible last year off the bench. Now they've got a guy who they can know, give it to him, he can score the ball.
Yeah, I've come around on this recently too, because I was feeling the same way you were. Skeets, is that they're trying to play fast, so they sign Al Jefferson. Doesn't make sense. But like you're saying, Lee, they've had a bad bench for probably the past 4 seasons. At least Al Jefferson's going to score.
Yeah, he can hold down that bench. He plays against backups. I mean, that's a key.
My under-the-radar offseason move is actually a couple, and it's the Philadelphia 76ers actually acquiring some NBA players. That helps. That helps win
does
basketball
help.
games in theory. I mean, they only won 10 games last year. They can't get worse. I hope not. But they went and got some decent guys. Jared Bayless, now he's injured right now with a wrist. He'll be back. He's a proven backup point guard. Gerald Henderson, I really like this one. He was a year in Portland, reasonable 2-year deal. And then they're taking a flyer on Spanish point guard Sergio Rodriguez. He hasn't been in the league in a long time, but he's only 30 years old. I mean, he came when he was fairly young. He last
over
played for
too
the
early.
Knicks.
Came over
He
too
maybe
early.
came over too early, but again, none of those guys are going to blow you away. But they're all going to give you solid minutes. And that's what they need, especially with all their young talent there in Dario Saric and Ben Simmons when he comes back and Joel Embiid. They just need some legit veteran guys.
Yeah.
They didn't splurge at all. They didn't panic at all. They're not going to win a ton of games still this year, but they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Again, you can't get much worse than 10. But I liked what the Sixers
And they're not
did.
long-term deals either.
No. They didn't handcuff themselves at all. All right, question 35 here, guys. This is a fun one. We do this one every year. What puntastic New York Post headline are we going to see this year?
Well, there will be a day when President Phil Jackson says through the media to Carmelo Anthony, you're shooting too much. And that's when Carmelo Anthony, through the media, shoots back, talking Phil's language, and says, mellow out, man. Relax, Phil. I got this.
Well, after Joakim Noah shatters his ankle in a breakdancing battle, on the front of the New York Post, you're going to see, oh, Noah!
Oh,
Man.
Noah's always loved dancing, but things are tougher in NYC.
Oh, we win a couple Emmys, apparently.
It's a big year for us.
Oh, great stuff. Lee?
First game on Christmas Day this year is Boston at New York at Madison Square Garden. I think Chris Tapps hits the winner, and it's a Christmas miracle.
I could see that one.
Yeah,
I
sure,
could see
that could
one.
happen.
My inevitable New York Post headline, it's a play on Derrick Rose and his comments about the Knicks' expectations. Earlier this summer, he said the Knicks' expectations are high. I mean, with these teams right now, they're saying us and Golden State are the super teams. Derrick Rose thinks the Knicks are a super team. If they struggle, it's going to be a pooper team. I just really wanted to say pooper team on the air.
And put in the emojis on there.
Yeah, that's right. You know the emojis are going to come into play. So there you go. That's only if they struggle. I got the Knicks making the playoffs. I'm going to do that again. Spoiler alert when we get to that question. But if they lose a couple of games in a row, it's pooper team. All right, when we come back, Tass is back on the hot seat to tell us who he thinks will lead the league in scoring this season. Don't go anywhere. Back with the starters NBA season preview, 72 burning questions. And our next 5 questions are for Tass Mellis over on the hot seat, his second go at the hot seat. Is it hotter?
quite.
You look on fire.
They look good?
Oh, your shirt, I think, was on fire.
You look hot.
Yeah, look it. Very nice. All right, Tass, 5 questions here. Question 36 overall. Tass, who will lead the league in scoring?
James Harden of the Houston Rockets. I feel more confident about this answer than anything I've answered in these previews. He was second with 29 points per game last year. The only guy who was ahead of him, Steph Curry, is going to score less this season. Steve Kerr said you're not shooting 400 threes this year. You got to get everybody involved. That's where James steps in. He led the league last year in minutes played per game, so he's going to play a ton. He said already this offseason, I can't play 34 or 35 minutes a game like those other guys, which I don't think is very nice. It's a little disrespectful to his teammates, but it bodes well for this prediction. James Harden, we already got him playing point guard. Give him the ball more this year. Easy answer, guys.
All right, next question here. Hopefully it's a little tougher. Get your confidence there. Most anticipated regular season game?
Let's not get cute with this answer. Warriors, Thunder, November 3rd. The return of KD and Russell Westbrook. These guys don't talk to each other, apparently. They played together for a very long time. Russell Westbrook is already tired of the questions coming his way. Hey, do you and KD talk? Hey, do you and KD talk? This guy wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not going to stop this game. How many is he going to go for? 40? 45? I don't think he's going to hold anything back against the Warriors November 3rd.
That one should be good. All right, your next question here, Tass. Who will perform at the All-Star Game in New Orleans?
I'm going to go with New Orleans native Lil Wayne. If you remember last year, the NBA went extremely old with the guy who performed Sting. They're not going to go way young. We're not going to see Austin Mahone perform. We're going to see Lil Wayne. He's also been at All-Star games before. That's him with his good friend Scott Brooks there.
Best buddies.
And, you know, he may bring along some other artists.
Oh,
It
star
happens.
power.
Maybe a little Drake. Who knows?
Lil Wayne, I like it. All right, this next one, guys. A few weeks ago, the league announced, their referees announced that they're going to be keeping a closer eye on the type of plays that resulted in Draymond Green being suspended for one game during the postseason. The low blow kick that Steven Adams definitely felt. So, Tass, your question. How will Draymond Green get under opponents' skin this season?
Like this, Skeets, just like this. He's going to show a lot of teeth to his teammates. He's going to smile a ton. It's going to get under their skin. You could see Draymond Green doing this, right?
Yeah.
I think he still feels bad about getting suspended in the NBA Finals. So he's going to go the other direction completely. No talking, no kicking, just laughing in your face after making a good play and really, really getting under your skin. I can see Draymond doing that.
It's really irritating, absolutely. All right, final one here. Final hot seat question actually comes courtesy of the Greek Freak, who opened up Bucks Media Day with a very strange joke. Take a look.
I have a joke.
Okay.
Knock, knock. Obama.
Obama who?
all by myself. Come on, man.
Crickets. Just crickets. All right, Tess.
I liked it.
I just want to do that.
That was great.
Help Yanni out. Write a better knock-knock joke for the Greek Freak. What do you got?
I'm not sure he needs any help. Give him a few laughs there, Milwaukee. But I'll help him out here. Knock, knock.
Who's
Who's
there?
there?
Kawhi.
Why who?
Kawhi, you mad, bro? Can't you see him dunking on somebody and dropping that on an opponent? Kawhi, you mad, bro? And then he rips open his jersey to reveal.
There it is. Tessie on the hot seat. A proud member of Greek Freak Nation. All right, we gotta take
These clasps came in handy.
take one more break. Didn't see that coming. But when we come back, the starters army, you, yes, you, vote on the best player in the league. Don't go anywhere. The NBA plot thickens. 40 of our 72 burning questions now up on our investigation board. Who did it? Who did it? I mean, oh, Ginobili, Gasol working together now on San Antonio. One of the questions we asked last week was which former NBA player Lee will defeat in a shooting contest next. You said,
Kenny the Jet Smith.
yeah, you see the photo there with the Rockets back in the day. Well, Kenny has responded, Lee.
Uh-oh.
Kenny has responded. He tweeted, so I hear the starters challenged me to a shootout. No joke, I'm the best shooter not in the NBA. Accepted, taking all bets.
It's on.
It is on. Lee will be taking on Kenny Smith hopefully some point this season in a shooting contest.
You know what this means?
What?
I'm gonna have to go in the studio and shoot every day to practice.
Well, you do that anyway.
Guess you'll have to.
You do that anyway. Oh man, we're doing Kenny dirty here. We're not showing him hitting the shot.
What are we doing?
Oh, Kenny.
Oh, Lee's just cashed.
Lee's never missed.
There's Coach Kyle.
Oh, we're just poking the bear.
Yeah.
We are
You got
rude.
this one.
Oh, I love it. You excited?
I'm very excited. Let's do it. I remember watching Kenny hit 7 in Game 1 of the '95 Finals. He inspired me. Now I want to beat him.
You would have hit 8.
Yeah, I would have hit 8.
All right. We asked the starters fans out there on Twitter, who's the best player in the league? Something we were debating earlier in the show. 63% say LeBron James. LeBron James. Steph Curry, 18% in second. A lot of votes in the other category, I should point out, for Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook. Durant coming in there at 5%. Tomorrow, part 6 of the NBA season preview series. We're going to tackle burning questions like which teams are must-watch League Pass material, who's going to win Sixth Man of the Year, another award-based question, and I love this one. What will be the biggest fashion trend this season? Overall.
Seems to be always Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
He's the trendsetter, no doubt.
For sure. So that is tomorrow. We'll see you then, 5:30 p.m. Eastern here, only on NBA TV.
Thank you so much for joining us today, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, when it feels like you're out of breath, take one.
Brace the night, people.